But yeah, so the first MDMA time, um, I felt self love for the first time in my life ever. Like I felt compassion towards myself, and I was like, "Oh, I'm a decent person," and I hadn't felt that before ever. So it was so cool to just like really be in a space of loving myself for a
Mhm.
change. So.
Hello, everyone. I'm Pammy from the Psychedelic Sisterhood. I'm with my friend Robin, who is writing a book right now called Black People Trip. And she's going to tell us all about that and her stories on microdosing, psychedelics, and everything else in between. So, welcome, Robin.
Thank you, Pammy. Glad to be here with you.
Glad to have you. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
So I'd like to start it out by asking you about Black People Trip and how that story came about and what people can expect to be in the book.
Sure. So the book came about because when I was finding out about psychedelics and this whole space, I wanted to read a book by a Black person and specifically a Black woman. And
Mm-hmm.
there were none that existed. And so I said, well, I can't find one, so I may as well write one. So I just created, you know, something where there wasn't anything before that existed. So yeah, and what they can expect is a lot of my story about my own struggles with mental health, with trauma, with therapy, and then finally last year finding psychedelics and my whole journey with that, and navigating what it's like to be a Black queer woman in a very white male space.
Mm-hmm.
So it shares that, and then it also has practical tips for people that want to learn about just the 101 basics of psychedelics and how to use them safely. So it'll be part my story and a part intro guide for people. So
Oh,
a little
that's
bit of both.
amazing. Yeah, I
Thank
think an
you.
intro guide is really important, especially for people that don't know anything about psychedelics, keep hearing about
Yeah,
it and are interested. I think
yeah.
it's really great. So what started your journey with psychedelics?
Well, I struggled with depression for most of my life. So most of my adult life, so over 30 years. I'm 45 now. And I've been in talk therapy, I've been on medication, I've tried every modality out there, it feels like. And nothing was really getting to the heart of what was happening inside emotionally. And I was on, I think it was last year, I was on like 5 or 6 different psych meds. And I just felt awful and they weren't really helping. And so I wanted a more holistic, not quite so lethal approach to my wellness. And so I looked online and I just Googled, psychedelic, or not psychedelic, but just depression alternative therapies. And an article about MDMA came up,
Mm-hmm.
and the guy was saying that it was like 20 years of talk therapy in one MDMA session. And I said, I don't even know what MDMA is, but I must find it and I must go do it. And a month later, I found it and I found a guide and I did it. And I was like, oh, yes, I
Yeah.
see. I understand. Yes.
So
So,
that's something that you and I have in common. I also tried MDMA for the first time, not in a therapeutic session, but
okay.
at a party, in a club. It was
Yeah.
great. It was amazing.
Yeah.
But I was felt with like filled with this moment of I don't know, just love and understanding of people around me. I'm curious if you've had any experience of that feeling when you were in therapy.
Yeah, definitely. And it wasn't actually therapy. It was with just a guide that did
Mm.
MDMA sessions.
Hmm.
Um, but I am still in talk therapy, and she's actually very supportive of my trying this alternative path, which I think is so cool.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, so the first MDMA time, um, I felt self love for the first time in my life ever. Like I felt compassion towards myself, and I was like, "Oh, I'm a decent person," and I hadn't felt that before ever. So it was so cool to just like really be in a space of loving myself for a
Hmm.
change. So,
Is that something that you've struggled with your whole life, you think, coupled
oh,
with depression? Hmm.
definitely, definitely, a
Hmm.
lot of just horrible self talk and doubt and just nothing nice happening in my headspace. And
Hmm.
yeah,
Like continuous negative self-talk. Yeah, I
it's
think
like,
it's such a
oh,
difficult thing to handle.
it's like, go away, get a hobby, leave me
Yeah.
alone. It's what?
No, I definitely have lots of experience with that as well. I mean, just like for now, just starting this, like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm doing it. I know there's something that needs to be done, but
Right.
every so often you get this thought that's like, what are you doing? Come on, what are
Oh
you
my God.
doing?
It's the same thing with what I'm creating on Instagram, like Black People Trip. I'm like,
Mhm.
what's happening over there? What's going on? And why are you doing this? You know nothing. Um,
Totally,
it's like
totally.
so
But
that talk is
yeah, and at the same
yeah,
vein, you gotta start somewhere, right? So that's what I, at least what I keep telling myself,
that's
and
it.
hope you can keep telling yourself that,
I do.
start one step at a time, and
That's it.
you'll
Yeah.
get there.
Everybody that I respect and admire started right where we are, with
Hmm.
one follower and one podcast
Honestly,
and
absolutely,
everybody. So yeah.
absolutely. But there is something that's, I don't know if it's a Brooklyn thing or if it's a New York thing, but there is something that's really interesting where, like, say we're just starting out and people that have started get a little bit of information and all of a sudden they think they're an expert. This I
Mm,
cannot understand. I mean, I've run into that. I don't know. Like, I've run into that so many times here in Brooklyn that I don't know if it's just Brooklyn or if it's the rest of the world. So I know New York is a bubble, but I've had these experiences where I've talked to people about, like, say, the other day I was talking to someone about ayahuasca,
mm,
and she went on this whole tirade about, there's this very specific way to do it. And I thought we were just having a conversation.
yeah.
I should backtrack on how this started. I was in, where was I? I was at an event, and it was just, people sitting, it was at a church, just people sitting in pews. This woman was sitting next to me, a man sitting behind us, and they were starting up a conversation about ayahuasca because the
Okay.
event was about ayahuasca. And she starts saying about this very specific thing about how you do it and how this and that and the other. And I chimed in because I was like, oh, I've had ayahuasca too, and this is how I did it. And this part was very beneficial for me.
Mm.
And she had just gotten such a, like, a mess of emotions, and I was upset, and I was like, no, that's not how it goes. And blah, 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 blah. And da, da, da. And I'm just like, okay. So I
Ugh.
don't know. I just didn't know what to say. And, like, I wanted to be like, well, there's multiple ways that you can do things. But
Mhm.
I was just, I don't know. It didn't seem like it was worth it. It seemed like it was a waste of time to do that.
Mhm.
But I'm curious with your journey, since you're just getting started with psychedelics, if you've run into any personalities like
Oh my gosh, yes. And I
that.
didn't expect it because I thought like this space people are going to be more open, more self-aware. And
Yeah.
no, it's the same as every other space. There are people that are all, in their ego about it and think they know better than everybody else.
Isn't
And
that
no,
incredible?
no, you don't. No, you don't, Blanche. No, you don't. It's like when anybody comes at me with like their way is the best way or the right way or I should
Hmm.
do it this way, I'm
Hmm.
like, nah, I can't play
Yeah.
with that because
If anything, yeah, this field is like, I mean, there are certain things for your safety, but outside
definitely,
of that, I think, everyone has their comfort levels of comfortability. So yeah,
yeah,
it's unfortunate. It's
it
unfortunate.
it is. I mean, but I think there are always going to be those folks in any space that we are in, no matter how not I hate the word evolved, but how I don't know what the word is, but there are always
Mm,
those folks.
yeah, like, no matter what we do, no matter how much we learn, no matter how much we, for lack of the better word, evolve into whatever thing we're doing, there seems to be, at least a handful of personalities that still stay the same,
Yep,
unfortunately. And with a
definitely.
space where ego death exists, and where you're basically showing your asshole essentially on
Mm,
some of these
yes,
psychedelic experiences.
yes, very well said. Very well said. Yeah.
It's surprising to me. It's very surprising to me when people come with a holier than thou um, mentality. It's very
Yeah.
weird, but it could be just something else, and not, I don't know, not for their learning or whatever. I
And
don't know. Who
you know what
knows?
I love it too, as well is to see these big wig scientists spouting
Hmm.
like the right way, who probably have
Hmm.
never had a trip in their life.
That's
You
another
know,
interesting thing too.
I'm
Yeah.
like, no, I don't want to hear from you. What are you talking about,
Hmm.
dude?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like I don't have your experiences. I don't have your life. Like, I don't
no,
think we associate the same. So
no.
I don't know that the way you experience it. If I can only take it with a grain of salt at this point.
That
It's
that's what
helpful slightly, but
like, I know, I mean,
yeah.
like when I was first starting out, I was trying to read like everything that I could and read every article, every book, and they
Hmm.
were very scientific, very heady, and they
Hmm.
weren't fun to read, first of all. Um,
Very dense.
yeah, I was like, I just want to read a story about somebody that went out in the forest and tripped and was like, whoa, that was awesome. And I want to hear
Hmm.
those stories and
Yeah.
regular folks, and they weren't out there. So,
That's why I think it's so important for you to write this book, is because you can put it in a way that's not so stuffy, and where people can, understand where you're coming from. They can hear from a perspective of where they're coming from. And that's kind of how I learned about psychedelics. I didn't get started in psychedelics until my early 30s,
mm,
where I had my first psychedelic experience, and I ended up, what I couldn't find on YouTube, when I was chatting with people like online or something. That's how I learned about psychedelics. It was just like, word of mouth from people that are around
yeah,
me that I knew, um, and that was just so much more beneficial. And for me, I felt like the information was so much more trusted than just
yeah,
any book of some person I didn't know. You know what I mean? So
definitely. Totally, totally.
yeah, so I commend
And
you for that.
thank
It's
you.
such a great project. Yeah.
And I think I'm relatable because I am super messy in my life. I'm not like all put together. I don't meditate every day. I'm not
Mhm.
like I'm just me. I think people can
Mhm.
see themselves in my daily struggles and triumphs and all that stuff. So
Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
because I ain't there yet. So we're gonna get there together. So
Yes, yes. A lot of
yeah.
us aren't there. I do want to ask you, what your experiences are with microdosing.
Yeah. I did about 3 months of microdosing last summer, and
Mm-hmm.
it was amazing. Like I didn't realize how something so small, such a small little thing, can make such a big difference. But like
Mm-hmm.
my mood was just, I wasn't as annoyed as easily. People
Mm-hmm.
didn't piss me off quite so quickly. I could get more done, and so I don't know why I didn't keep going. I think I just didn't re-up and just forgot about it, and life went on. But I definitely want to get back into it. I'm a big advocate of that.
What was
So
the substance and how much?
mushrooms,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know. I bought them like pre-packaged,
Mm-hmm.
or pre-made. I don't know what the dose was. I think it was like, I don't know, probably 0.35 of a gram, if that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, and but isn't it incredible though? Like, so like little of it can
yeah.
do wonders, and they're not legalized. It's
It doesn't make any
it's
sense.
and it's also like, I'm pretty sure. I'm gonna ask you if you are still feeling some of the effects of the microdosing now, even months later after you haven't, like um not residual, but I don't know. I'm the word I'm trying to look for.
I think I know what you mean. I don't know.
Yeah.
The word is not coming to me either, but I think I know what you mean.
Yeah, do you feel the effects that you had then? Are you feeling the results of it now still? That's what I yeah, there it is. Got it.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Nice, nice recovery. Nice recovery. I I think so, and I almost don't believe it, but it was like months later, and I had this kind of mini meltdown, like
Mhm.
complete breakdown, and it what felt like not quite an ego death, but definitely a death of some sort was occurring. And I
Mm.
feel like the mushrooms were a part of that, even though I hadn't had them for months. Something in there was, I think, still working itself out, and so
Mhm.
yeah, I think they're still in there. My self talk has changed as well. Like when I'm on mushrooms, I'm unable to be unkind to myself with words.
Mhm.
I can't, and that definitely has shifted. I'm much kinder, and I think the mushrooms did that. Either the big trips or the microdosing, either one, I
Mhm.
don't care, but I do see a shift.
That's
So
amazing. Yeah, I know for myself a couple of times. So the couple of times I did have mushrooms,
yeah,
I could still negative self talk, but I would
hmm,
see it separate than how it usually feels. Like it
yeah,
usually, like if I'm not on anything, like it feels like it's my words. It feels like this is the truth, and
right.
I get down about it. And then on mushrooms, like I'll see it, and I'm like, who's saying that? Whose thought is that? It's not mine. What is
Ah, I
that? And
love
I
that.
can shove it away, and
Yeah.
that's it's so much more helpful to be able to
Oh,
see it as not yourself, because it's so easy to be like, oh, yeah, you're not doing great. What? Why are you? What are you doing? Why are you doing
yeah.
this? You know, and to
Oh,
see it as another voice, it's so beneficial. Has been beneficial my growth at least,
yeah.
but then just recognizing it, that's the hard part, I think.
I
It
love
was
the way you put that. It's like
Thanks.
an outside voice, and it really is. It makes it
It really
separate from, it's
is.
not so internal.
Yeah. And I think
Wow.
without psychedelics, I would never have had that separation, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Um, we're
so,
learning things
they're so
today.
good. They're so good. I know. I love them. Yeah. It's awesome.
Let me see. Oh, here's one. When did you make the executive decision to experiment with psychedelics outside of antidepressants and therapy?
It would be June of 2020. So,
You know the exact
yeah,
date.
I
That's so
do.
soon.
I Because I was almost a year, almost a year. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but I was,
So, from where
yeah,
you started a year ago to now, what are those differences that you can see?
um, like emotionally or just like overall life or just
Yeah,
anything.
emotionally, just, what you've been doing as far as with your life, if it's
Yeah.
changed anything,
Oh, so many changes. Oh my
plans.
goodness. A year ago, I was like a home organizer, and now I'm like a drug advocate. I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my whole outlook on, drugs as a whole has changed. I
Mm-hmm.
don't see them as, the way the society has rammed it into our heads is like they're bad and dangerous. They're tools, and how we use them is, what makes them harmful or not. Um,
Mm-hmm.
my life, I've started building a community of Black people that trip. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
super cool. 'Cause I wasn't sure that they were out there, but we are out there. So it's
Mm-hmm.
been amazing to find them and find my people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I feel like I finally fit somewhere in this space. Um, because I'm always kind of been like, you know, the odd duck out because I'm a little off. I'm okay with that. But like I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I fit here and I like that.
It's
Um,
good. Yeah.
yeah,
Making
and
your space, carving it out.
I'm getting there, and I
Yeah.
finally feel like at 45, I'm on somewhat of the right path for the first time in my life, and that feels amazing. I mean, is it hard? Yeah, things are kind of on fire right now. However, it
Mm.
still feels okay. I'm not overwhelmed. I'm not panicking. I'm just like I'm growing, and I'm okay with that. Whereas a year ago, I would have totally fallen apart if I was
Uh,
where I am now. So
I love that. That's so amazing.
yeah,
The journey is part of that, that living, that I don't know, that triumph, I think. A lot of
yeah,
times the things that are happening to us during, whatever time of that's difficult, it seems like, oh, like this is happening, why is it happening? But also that's part of the learning process.
definitely.
The way is through that, around.
That's it. That's it. And I
Yeah.
mean, it's so, I actually am kind of digging where I am right now. Because, like I said, it
Mm-hmm.
is uncomfortable and messy, but I know that there's so much learning happening and I'm really coming into who I am, that it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
a cool space to be in. It's like, oh, I wonder
Mm-hmm.
what's next. Like, there's a curiosity that I haven't had about life before. So I
Mm-hmm.
like that.
Could you indulge me on a story of a recent interaction you had with someone? I don't know if I should divulge too much. There's a woman in Brooklyn you had an issue with.
Oh, I will tell you everything, Tammy.
Yes, tell
Yes.
me.
Oh my
Tell me
gosh.
the goss.
It was so bad. It was so bad. Okay, so so because our society is so backwards,
Mm-hmm.
guides are mostly underground, so they're
Mm-hmm.
hard to find. And especially a black guide. Like what?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I mentioned the article that I read last summer about the guy who did MDMA. And so I said, let me email him and see who he used, because he mentioned that he had a guide in his article.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually wrote me back and gave me her information. And I reached out to her. And it was a white woman, which was fine. I didn't care. I just wanted somebody to show me what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, and it wasn't a great interaction the first time. It wasn't really we didn't vibe, but I'm like, not about her, about the medicine, but it
Mm-hmm.
was a fine trip. The second trip that we did, it was around the time of the Black Lives Matter protest,
Mm-hmm.
and the George Floyd murder had just occurred. And so, as a Black person, I was shattered in my feelings. I was just like crushed.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to her for the session, and we were talking about it, just making small talk. And I was sharing how I was feeling. And she said to my face, out of her mouth, no,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't really affect me. I mean, I'm in my little bubble here, and I didn't know that that was a thing, white privilege. I didn't know that it existed, and I was like, what are you saying to me? Like, the protests don't affect you. You didn't know that you had privilege as a white woman, and it was just,
Mm-hmm.
I felt so unsafe and uncomfortable.
Or even on the fact that there is this life that was extinguished purposefully.
And
Like,
she had no feelings about that, like, and couldn't understand why I had feelings about it. So I'm like, oh, we're off to a bad start.
yeah,
This is not good. And
yeah, no.
I was so new that I didn't know how important set and setting were at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Had I known, I would have said, keep my money. I'm gonna go home. I'm not gonna,
Mm-hmm.
but I went ahead and did the journey, and it was so hard because I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't let go, and I fought it the entire time. I physically fought it, emotionally, and it was painful, And there was a point where I was, when I trip, I go out there, but I came back down from wherever I was, and I said, do you support him? And by him, that orange thing in the White House that used to
Mm-hmm.
exist. And she was like, oh, no. But just her attitude was like,
Mm-hmm.
it was just so gross. It was just a
Mm-hmm.
gross time. And that's what made me create my space that I have now.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was like, Black folks need options.
Yeah.
Because some white folks don't get it and can't hold space for us. They can't be
Mm-hmm.
safe containers.
Mm-hmm.
And in this work, safety is like huge, emotional, physical. And so I thank her for that because she inspired me to create what I have now. So I wouldn't change it.
Yeah.
She was awful, but I wouldn't change it.
That's
Yeah.
how we learn. It's lessons.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. That's it. So a lot of learning in that trip.
um, I know it's not in the works now, and we can
Okay.
cut this later if you're not comfortable.
No.
But we talked about an equity fund very briefly, very briefly. So I know there's no
Yeah.
plans, but if you
No,
want to chat about that a little bit.
Pammy, I would love to. Let me tell you, I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what's happening. The energy is so quick right now because things are actually in the works now. I had
mm-hmm.
the idea maybe 2 weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
and now I have people that are helping me to build it and bring it to life. So, what it
Nice.
is, thank you. I'm excited. I'm actually so stoked. The Psychedelic Equity Fund is just a fund that will, in my mind, kind of rival or be comparable to Rachel Carga. I'm going to say her name,
Mm-hmm.
but she created a fund for Black women who needed mental health um, funds, like they couldn't afford therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So she made a GoFundMe, raised some insane amount of money, and help people get therapy. I want to do that for Black women and psychedelic therapy. So I just want to raise funds so that Black women can go and go to ketamine clinic,
Mm-hmm.
can learn to grow through a mushroom class, can go to Peru and do an ayahuasca trip because this stuff isn't cheap.
Not at all.
I
Not
mean,
at all.
the guide that was in Brooklyn was $900,
Oh my goodness.
and I'm like,
What?
huh? That was my rent money, and I gave it to her because I was desperate. So
Mm-hmm.
people that are wanting to heal or learn about this shouldn't have to sacrifice, their
Mm-hmm.
financial well-being to find wellness.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm. But by the way, we will talk after this. You will not spend
oh,
$900.
oh, wait, thank you. I appreciate you. Yes, I was like,
This is
take all my
ridiculous.
money.
This
But I was
I understand. Yeah,
people
yeah,
that are desperate, they just want to feel better. And that
yeah.
was me. I wanted to feel better. I
I
said, what do
totally
you want?
understand that.
Take it
Mm-hmm.
all, But so
Yeah.
that's, and the thing that I want to also is so important to me is that I want my people to come
Mhm.
and not have to put their trauma on display to be
Yeah.
worthy of receiving help.
Mm-hmm.
I want somebody to come and say, "Hey, I want to go to this thing," and me be able to say, "All right, sis, I got you. Here's a check.
Mm-hmm.
Go take 2 months off. Go do your thing. Get well, and then pay it when you can. Pay it forward if you can. If you can't,
Mm-hmm.
that's okay too." you know?
Yeah, I find those are the best systems too, especially paying it forward, because that builds community, and you know that you're giving for someone else who
Definitely.
you want to have the same healing that you've gotten, um,
Yeah.
and that's beautiful.
I mean, a lot of the people that are pouring into me now in different ways come to me and they say, someone did this for me. So
Mm-hmm.
I want to do it for you. And when you're back on
Mm-hmm.
your feet, you do it for somebody else. And I said, all
Yeah,
right, I
that's
can
true
do that.
community. Yeah, I love
That's
that.
it.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
got to keep that circle going.
We take care of each other,
Mm-hmm.
because ain't nobody else going to do it. Nobody. So
Absolutely, absolutely.
I want to, not about the medicine. I want to
Mm-hmm.
talk about you though.
Me?
But you, yes. And I want to just,
Oh,
I want to have a
girl.
moment of appreciation for you
No.
and for having a conversation with another Black woman. We need more
Mm-hmm.
of these. So thank you for this space, because I need Black women to hear podcasts like this with two
Thank
Black women
you.
talking and just having a conversation.
Yeah.
Um,
Thank you
yeah,
for that. Honestly,
yeah,
thank you.
you're
And
welcome.
we don't really know each other, but we met each other face to face on Zoom for the first time yesterday.
Yeah,
And I want to say immediately when I met you, I felt so comfortable, and I felt like, I was talking to someone that I could really confide in and trust. And so I appreciate you. I appreciate your honesty. I appreciate your
thank you.
vulnerability that you put out there. I think that's the first step to, having people to understand you, is just showing people that, you're not afraid to be vulnerable, and you're not afraid to, you know, kind of lay all your cards on a table and be like, well, this is it. This is me. And I'm just like
Yeah,
you. And this is how we do it,
yeah,
and so I'm doing it, and maybe you can do it too.
that's
and that's
it.
and that's all there is. I mean, I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do anything. It's just doing it.
Just showing up.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
Thank you for that. And yesterday I felt the same way about you. I was like, oh, I know her. Yeah. So yeah, it was cool.
Thank you, thank you,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay.
I want to thank you so very much for creating this space. I think with you creating what you created, I have gotten so much inspiration
Mm.
and power behind what I do, because I just started it and I don't know what I'm doing, but seeing you do it, I'm just like, oh, we're doing this, yeah, we're doing it. So
Yes.
so I've gotten lots of energy just seeing you do what you do, and thank you for that.
Yeah. Thank you. It's an honor to show up and serve us. So
Yeah, and thank you for being on my podcast. We're
yeah,
nobody now, but we're gonna be somebody soon.
I had I had so much fun. Usually when I do these, I get like stressed out. I had so much fun. I had a ton of fun. So thank you.
Yes,
This has been
awesome,
cool. Yeah.
awesome. Thank you so much. And we can find Robin at Black People Trip, your Instagram.
Mhm.
Are there any other websites or anything they can find you at?
Website is the same handle or same name. Blackpeopletrip.com.
Mm-hmm.
The .org is coming soon for the nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the main spaces for now. And I'm on Patreon as well.
Perfect.
Uh, they can support me on a monthly ongoing basis, which is always welcomed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you for the last time. I know I said 1,000 times, but thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Very welcome. It's been an
Thanks.
honor. Yeah.
Thanks.